Hey guys, it's me, Kalia. So today for Bible Stories for Kids, we are going to be reading Down to Egypt. Pack your bags, boys. We are going to Egypt. Or land o Goshen. Genesis chapter 45, verse 16 dash 46, chapter 12. Happy day. Joseph and his brothers were together again. Joseph could hardly believe it. I am sure his brothers couldn't either. Who would have ever guessed how things were going to turn out that day? They sold their brother to a traveling Egyptian. But now all was forgiven, and they were finally a family again. There were just one tiny little problem. What is the problem? We don't know. But this has been a very great start so far. But make sure you guys are following along, because this book is going to be awesome. It's a way happier Bible study. There was just one tiny little problem. Joseph lived in Egypt, and the rest of his family lived in Canaan. Canaan. That wouldn't work. Someone was going to have to move. Well, the problem was solved when Pharaoh heard the news that Joseph and his family were back together again. They were so happy for Joseph that he said to him, "Tell your brothers to load up all their stuff and go back to Canaan. Tell them to get your father and their families and come back here and live with us. I promise that they will have the best land in all of Egypt. Tell them to take extra wagons with them to carry their wives and their children when they come back. But tell them not to worry about taking all their stuff. They can have the best of everything we have here in Egypt." Wow, Pharaoh was really generous. It just that he was so grateful because Joseph had saved his country. Of course, it was really good. It was really God who saved his country, but Joseph was God's faithful servant. Wow, that whole sentence made my throat dry. But let's get back with the story. And so Joseph's brothers did just as they were told. Who wouldn't? Joseph gave them wagons and food for the trip, and he gave them new traveling clothes too. But he gave his favorite color to little brother Benjamin, 300 pieces of silver and 5 new sets of clothes. Joseph also sent his father 10 donkeys piled high with his best stuff in Egypt, and 10 donkeys loaded with bread and cheese and frozen pizzas for the trip back home. Well, maybe not the frozen pizzas. Where would they cook them? And as Joseph was waving goodbye to his brothers, he said, "Don't argue with each other on the way. Do you suppose he was thinking about what was going to happen when his older brothers found out Benjamin got more than they did? Wow, that's a very great thing to say, but about the frozen pizza thing, yeah, that wouldn't be able to cook. But let's get back with the story. The amazing thing is the brothers didn't argue once the whole way home, and it is a long way. They really had changed. The moment they were home, they rushed into their father's tent. Joseph is alive, they said at once. Here is the ruler of all Egypt. Poor old Jacob nearly fell over backwards. He couldn't be Joseph. It couldn't be Joseph was dead. If he was torn apart by lions. At least that was his brothers had told their father all those years ago. What the heck? Okay, that is very weird. But let's get back with the story. But then they took their old father by the arm, and they showed him the wagons and donkeys piled up high with the finest goods from Egypt, and they knew it had to be true. My son Joseph is alive, Jacob said. This is all I could ever ask for. I must go and see him before I die. Jacob loved his children so much. Well, love is what the Bible is all about. Okay, boys, Jacob said after he recovered the shock. Pack up your things. We're moving to Egypt. And so that's just what they did. Of course, this wasn't like mom and dad packing the family camel for a 2-week vacation. It was Jacob and all his children, and they were wives and all their wives and all of their wives and all of their children, picking up their tents and packing up everything they owned and moving to a new country. Imagine what that must have looked like. Jacob and his 11 sons and all their wives and all of their children, with all their sheep and goats and cattle traveling along the dusty road to Egypt. And it's over 200 miles from Canaan to Egypt. That's a long time bounce up and down on a camel. Wow. So they're in Canaan, and now they're moving to Egypt. So Jacob, Joseph's father, could see Joseph. And what do you think Joseph would be like? Comment down below in the comments. They hadn't traveled very far when Jacob had to make a stop. It wasn't for coffee and donuts. It was to ask for directions from God, that is. It was a big deal. They were leaving the hand that God had promised them. What God wanted them to do? Jacob needed to ask God to lead him. And so Jacob made a stop at Beersheba. There was a well at Beersheba. And it was near the place where Jacob had that dream of angels going up and down his stairway to heaven. So Jacob stopped there and offered a sacrifice to God. That night, God said to him, "Jacob, Jacob, here I am," Jacob said. "I am God, the God of your father is Isaac. Do not be afraid to leave your home and go to Egypt. I will go with you, and my people will become a great nation there. But one day I will bring my people back to the land I have promised them." Now Jacob knew it was okay to move his family to Egypt. It was all part of God's plan. While Egypt was still a few days ahead, Jacob was anxious to see his son Joseph again. That he said to Judah, "Go on ahead and tell your brother we are coming. Tell him to meet us in the land of Goshen." Wow. That made my throat dry again. But the Jesus problem, and it wasn't for coffee and donuts and other stuff. That was not actually for. And I want you guys to still comment down below. What do you think Joseph's reaction is going to be? As soon as Joseph heard that his father was coming, he jumped on his chariot and raced off to meet him. When he saw his father off in the distance, remember that he hadn't seen his father in a long, long time. He drove his horses as fast as they could before he had come to a stop. Joseph jumped from his chariot and threw his arms around his father. He cried and cried for a very long time. "Now I can die in peace," Jacob said, tears rolling down his face. I have seen that my son is alive." That's just what God is all about. God wants to take things that have come apart and put them back together again. Pharaoh was true to his word. When Jacob and all of his family arrived in Egypt, Pharaoh gave them the land of Goshen, the best land in all of Egypt. My life of wandering has lasted 130 years. Jacob told Pharaoh, Now at last his wandering was over. Jacob and his sons and their wives and all their children and all their sheep and cattle settled down in their new home. And that's how God's people came to live in the land of Egypt. And they all lived happily ever after for a while, like 400 years or so. And the story really, really gets interesting. Sin breaks things apart, but God puts them back together again. All right, that was Down to Egypt. So, hope you guys liked my Bible study. I hope you guys liked my Bible study. Thanks, guys, for watching. I hope you guys were following along. And I hope you guys like this video, subscribe, comment down below, or ask me some questions. What was I not thinking of in the story? Or what was I thinking of in the story? And you guys can comment down below. and ask me another Bible study for kids that I can do. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Make sure you guys like to our channels, subscribe, comment down below what was your favorite thing about this video, and we will see you guys next Sunday. Bye-bye.